Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to the 100th episode of Manders Mindset. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am so excited that you are here listening to the 100th episode of Manders Mindset. This is the podcast where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. And I have spoken with so many amazing, thoughtful, kind individuals who have gone through so many different internal shifts and have helped me uncover and think of different ways to shift within my own life. And I really hope they've helped you guys shift within your own life as well. The road to 100 has been a journey. It has been full of so many mindset shifts. It's been crazy. I have put in so much thought and energy into deciding what was going to be episode 100. At first, I thought I was going to interview the founder of Breathwork Detox. Decided that's not what I wanted to do. Then I debated who I wanted to have interview me. And I went back and forth between a lot of people. I actually recorded a few different episodes that I told myself and told the guest that this was going to be episode. I actually also, I had the mindset of, I am going to have episode 99 be the episode where I interview somebody really close to me, somebody whose mindset I respect very highly, and someone that's close to me, somebody I know well, who then could switch the tables and interview me. Now, for the longest time, I had come up with this great idea of having my best friend, my biggest role model, my biggest inspiration in podcasting and in life, Brad, interview me, and I was going to interview him. Now, the way that timing fell, I wasn't able to do this. It wasn't able to work out. And I was so disappointed, if I'm being completely honest. That required a lot of mindset shifts for me because I felt almost like I had failed. But I had failed according to who? According to this preconceived notion that Manders set for herself, that episode 99 has to be the episode that I interview my best friend, and then episode 100 is the episode that he interviews me. Which, yes, episode 100 anything, it's a milestone, for sure. But why did it have to be that way? Only because my mind, my mindset, if you will, told me that. Then I still had in the mindset, okay, I'm still going to follow this plan because everything is figure outable. If you haven't heard episode 99, tune into that. But then I reached out to my really close friend, Brandon, who helps me whenever I get myself into any interesting situation. And I was like, I need a favor. I know you don't really listen to anybody's podcast, but I need you to let me interview you. Then you need to interview me. And we did this. And I released episode 99 of my interview of Brandon. I still have the interview where he interviewed me. I will release that at a later date. But listening back to it, it came to me that the episode of Brandon interviewing me wasn't what I was looking to air for episode 100. No, it was a great recording. Brandon and I had a blast. It was his first time ever interviewing somebody on a podcast, and you guys will hear that episode at some point, but it wasn't episode 100 quality. So I've done a lot of internal reflecting, thinking, and mindset shifting, if you will, about what I wanted episode 100 to be, who I wanted to interview me, what I wanted to talk about, what have you. Decided to have someone really close to me who's also a podcaster who knows a lot about my podcasting journey sit down and have the tables turn. And I had a good friend of mine, JR, interview me. I really hope you all enjoy this episode. You get to see a lot of different sides of me. And these are some of the internal mindset shifts that I had to shift in the process and on the road to 100. And you'll hear me talk a little bit about this deeper, but again, it was also coming back and into that awareness of who set this rule, that this is what it has to be. The only person who set that rule or shifted my mindset in a negative way was myself. So I encourage you to ask yourself, what are you telling yourself you have to do a certain way? What if you did it differently? There's no one certain way to do anything. I hope 100 episodes later, you have learned or taken away at least one gem to be able to shift your mindset, to change your perspective, to look at the world a little more positively, a little more brightly. And I hope you all enjoy this episode of JR interviewing me on Manders Mindset. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, I'd really appreciate it if you left me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share the podcast with somebody who you think needs to shift their mindset. Because all in all, that's all I'm looking to do is help anybody look at the world in a more positive light, because life is hard enough as it is. And if I could help shift somebody's life even a tad, it would make my day, honestly. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you enjoy seeing and hearing a different side of Manders Mindset. And let's get into the episode.
Greetings, everyone. My name is J.R. Sparrow. I'm the host of West Virginia Uncommonplace, and I have a great and amazing delight today. I have the honor of being bestowed upon me the hardest job on earth to make episode 100 of Manders Mindset with the illustrious host, Amanda Russo. She's a host, she's a breathwork facilitator, and she's got like 70 different other titles. And you can find her anywhere walking around New England, taking care of herself and making herself known to everyone because she loves to talk. So, Amanda, I need you to do something that's nostalgic to West Virginia Uncommonplace. I ask a simple question. It's called, who is Amanda Russo? So please tell us, who is Amanda Russo?
Now I know how guests feel when I ask them who they are at the core. Amanda Russo is a human being. She's someone who's just trying to make people in the world feel seen, valued, heard. I know you mentioned I've got 70 titles, which I do, but I don't necessarily like to focus necessarily or identified with the titles. It's more of like who I embody, at like the personality I embody, per se. Okay. If that answers the question, I think.
That touched the question. We'll unearth the rest of it through this interview. Now, behind every person, right, we have people that build us up. In my lifetime, I'm 39 years old. I had a father. My father was with me until 1994. He passed away. So he'll build me into this strong, rugged mountain man. But you have a story that goes back to a beautiful woman. 15 years, I believe, you two had a great engagement in life. This woman gave you a lot of your know-how and how you perceive and handle people, correct?
Yes.
And who's that lady? What's her name? And tell me about the moments. We want to hear about the moments. What makes Amanda who she is, and who is this one person in particular that has moved and grooved and made you?
So you're referring to my grandmother. Her name was Sandy. I called her Mimi. but yeah, she really shaped how I treat people, how I show up, how I look at the world. Honestly, she was the biggest shapeshifter of my mindset, if you will. I spent a lot of time with her. Granted, and I talk a lot about how I quote unquote only had 15 years with her, but I spent more time with her than most people spend with their grandparents. Growing up, I lived with her. I lived with my mom as well as my grandparents, but my mom worked a full-time job. My grandma didn't for most of my life. Towards when I was young, she worked part-time, but so she was the adult figure in my life that wasn't really working. So picking me up from school, it was her. My mom would drop me off, but I was with Mimi 24/7 because my grandfather worked on the railroad as well. So like he worked a decent amount when I was younger. So there's a lot of times it was just her and I. And one of the biggest things she always said to me was, and if you grew up in like late 90s or before that, you've probably heard this from some adult in your life. But if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And it was something I really tried to embody in all aspects of life because, I've touched upon this a few times on my own podcast, on guesting, but I was bullied a lot growing up for being overweight, for the sound in my voice, because maybe it's an accent, maybe I just can't speak that well. I don't know. Went to speech therapy, but I was bullied for both of those. And, with having that mindset of like, if you don't have anything nice to say, just shutting up, like you don't have to say the unkind thing. Like, I pride myself in being really unjudgmental, but we all do have our judgments, and nobody can say they don't judge anybody for anything because we all do. But it's like, you don't have to say that judgment to that person. There was something else she said to me, and I was really young when she said this. And I remember I was around the age that like you would question everything. I think I was around 10, but she was like, and I was at that age where I was almost like teasing other kids a little bit. And even being a standby person when other kids would tease other people, because growing up, I wasn't somebody that would say anything. So like if there was a kid teasing somebody, I might not follow along with the teasing, but I'm not going to be the kid to stick up for the kid. Until she said to me, she's like, Amanda, something you say, and I can't remember if she said 5 seconds or 5 minutes, but she was like, something that takes you 5 minutes to say could last in somebody's head or in somebody's mind for 5 years. And I was like, what does that even mean? Why is it going to last in their head for 5 years? Almost giving her a little bit of sass. Like, it's not going to last in their head for 5 years. And she was like, Amanda, if somebody says something either really nice to you or really hurtful to you, you're going to remember that. You're likely going to remember that for longer than the person that said that to you. And it was hearing that I was then like, wow, like I don't have to say all my thoughts out loud, like if we get hurt by something somebody does, if we don't understand somebody's opinion on something, if we disagree on something, if we have that judgment of whatever it is, we don't have to say that to that person, and I think there's so much power in, I guess, silence or shutting up. And I don't mean that badly, but like not hurting other people's feelings, and it's just, again, you don't know how long it's going to last with what you say to somebody. Like, I still remember some of the specific things, I'll probably remember some of either the really hurtful things or the really great things that were said to you, even if it wasn't yesterday, last month. And it's like bringing that to the awareness, it kind of just makes you pause more so and like, okay, like, let me journal about this before I like speak my judgment. Like, let me say it to a close friend instead of, I'm somebody that weirdly enough, like I talk to myself, like as weird as that fucking might sound, like I'll talk to myself. I'll record a voice message to myself, like just venting it and getting it out, but not even having to say stuff to certain people, and one of the things I pride myself in the most is that I really think I'm not a judgmental person. Like people can tell me any and everything, and I'm not going to judge somebody just because like I've seen it, I've been through it, etc. And I really got that from her because she, more so than anybody else in the whole family, she did not judge anybody. You know, something I jokingly say, but it's honestly the biggest truth is that there's nobody in the family that liked my grandmother. Like everybody liked her. There's people that don't like me. There's people that don't like my mother. My grandma was the person in the family that every single person liked. It is openly known that because she didn't look at anybody differently, regardless of what you did, regardless of what you tried. I have a cousin that went down the drug route and got involved in drugs, heroin, whatnot. And even that, like, he didn't end up graduating high school. And, you know, she still never judged him for that. She didn't get to see us make it to the point of high school graduation, but she was still one that, like, she didn't judge anybody. You know, I had a cousin of mine, a second cousin of mine, and I actually never shared this story before, but she, and I don't even remember this, I was really young, but she was getting married. And when she first met this man, he still wasn't divorced from his last wife.
What?
So by the time they were getting married, he was divorced, whatnot, whatever. But her parents were really old school, very religious, very old school. And they were like, if you're marrying him, like, we're not going to the wedding. And they didn't go to the wedding. I was young, so I wasn't even invited. I don't even know if I was like 2, 3, 4. I was super young. But my grandma went to this wedding, and it's so funny. And I only know this story because I heard about it from my mom, but she called my aunt to tell her, and she was like, I just want to let you know, I have no hard feelings. You can do what you want and have your beliefs, but I'm still going to your daughter's wedding. She is not judging her. She is not looking at her differently. This man was going through divorce. My grandma understood life. Like, divorce is a long process. He started a new relationship. Before the divorce was fully finalized, they got engaged. They didn't walk down the aisle when he was still married, obviously. Legality-wise, they couldn't do that. But her parents were still, oh, you shouldn't have met him, gone down this road, when he was technically married. But my grandma was like, listen, I'm not looking at her differently for that. I'm not. But she also wasn't one that isn't going to speak up, because some people would have still gone to the wedding but wouldn't have said anything to my aunt. No, she called her to let her know, listen, like, here's the deal. And my aunt, I guess, appreciated that because they never had bad blood, because she was very authentic. She even said to her, she was like, listen, I can't turn my back on my niece just because she's marrying someone that maybe I don't agree with the timing. Maybe I don't agree with the way it happened. She's still my niece. And, you know, it was one of those that it was like, I had a lot of respect for that, because people in life, whether you want to call it a mistake, whether you want to call it things we look back on that either we regret or we would have wished we would have maybe done differently, we all have something like that. And she wasn't going to turn her back on her people just because of that. And I respected that mindset so much. So much.
Okay.
I will let you interject.
Yeah, and I like that because, you know, right there you just gave the audience and you gave other podcasters a personable side about you. You learned something about your grandmother. So know your grandmother going through everything with you and you having this experience and learning about this experience later on. What was a favorite dinner or a snack, something that you and her did personal together? Did y'all have a TV show? Did y'all have an ice cream, or did you go sledding in the snow or something? What did y'all do together that was special? Like, to you, if you can just go ahead.
We would eat toasted tomato sandwiches with fresh tomatoes, mayonnaise, salt, and pepper on them.
Okay, and when you make that sandwich now, whenever you do, because we know you're really super healthy.
Had it in years.
But you might make one tomorrow, right? Just thinking about it just brings up that moment. And see, that right there is what makes you a great podcaster, because you have a moment right there. You told us about it. You let us in, right? And that's what I like about you and your style of podcasting, because you doing that right there let us know about Amanda Russo. If we were sitting at home with you right now, if we were all sitting around at my favorite pizza place in Franklin, Mass. She's in New England, but she's not in Franklin, Mass, so don't try to go there and find her. But if we were out there, I've got like 3 spots out there. So look, audience, real quick, I want to do something fun here. With that starting there, that's the start of her origin story. Amanda and I are on a crusade now to learn about Marvel Comics. So that'll tie into something later. But with that, being tied in. That's her origin story right there. That's part of that. So let's get into the nitty gritty, what people want to know. This is episode 100. This is the prolific episode. And you brought me on as the host, which is amazing. It's hard to get me, guys. I will be honest with everybody. I'm one of those ones that, I'm fly by night. You might catch me here and there, but you don't see me everywhere. So let's go with this real quick. You have tons of people that already know the origin story of your podcast, but let's just go back and tell that story one more time. Here's the rhyme and reason for this. Telling the story again, there's going to be a new listener. There's going to be new listeners, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So please tell us what inspired you to create Manders Mindset and how did the idea for the podcast come about? And then please tie this into how that mindset led to you being part of something that's amazing that you do now. So tell us how this podcast came about and how you ended up doing what you do as a facilitator.
Okay. So the podcast came about, I've not my whole life, but more of my adult life. I've been a pretty big talker, and I always have something to say, whether it's a comment, whether I'm giving feedback, whether I've always got something to say. For a while, I would post on social media, on my stories, different videos talking about different things. I had a friend of mine actually tell me I was like a motivational speaker. Shout out to Megan. Ignored that. She's like, you should start speaking. I'm like, what does that even mean? Whatever. In college, I was a tour guide. Like, I was known for like my loud voice, my speaking skills. Anytime we would have a really big tour, they would always give that to me because I could raise my voice loud enough to get all the families to hear me. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to interject. Can you give us a little
example of giving a tour?
How loud your voice is.
Oh, how loud my voice is? I
Yes.
mean, I would raise it and I would be like, everybody, we are going to gather around right over here. We're going to get close in. Nobody's going to bite each other. And I'm going to tell you what we are going to walk through this cafeteria and see. On my right, when we first walk in, this is what you're going to see. And it was global. That's where you can get Mexican, tacos, burritos, quesadillas, made to order. You can choose what you'd like. In the back corner, you will see, I don't remember the name of it now, but it was the Italian. You can get pizza, pastas, different dishes each day, anything like that. Center, we have our main dishes, changes every single meal. There's 3 different options. In the back corner, you have the grill. You can get your grilled hot dogs, hamburgers, grilled cheese, French fries, every and anything like that. Over in the very front towards the left is the deli. And we are going to walk through. We're going to do a loop around. We will come back to the center. Any questions you have about that, you can ask me when we get back out here. And that's an example.
I like that. Now, you've got to tell us how this podcast came about now.
I was in the process.
Right, but I'm just making sure that when we get to talking, sometimes we lose focus. But with you have a mindset with a headset. So definitely keep going. You got it.
No, but that was to give you an example of, like, in high school, a speaker. I didn't speak a lot. I didn't use my voice. I wasn't really speaking. College, I got more into that, even the tour guide example. Then post that, I was sharing different videos like I mentioned. A friend of mine had mentioned you're like a motivational speaker. Did not do anything with that. I posted like some random videos of almost like my feedback on different podcasts Rachel Hollis posted on Instagram. I have no idea what my purpose of this was. If you look back, 2022. Fast forward, 2023, I got certified in breathwork in Utah, and I was a big talker there. I always had something to say. It was interesting because at one point, even the founder, the head trainer, even had his back turned at one point, and he was like, does anybody have a question before I see what Manders has to say? And I was like, maybe I should shut up. I didn't, but by the end of said training, he says to me, Manders, you should start a podcast. Now, that was the first time anybody had ever said this to me. So it wasn't even something I thought about. So like these videos and this information, feedback, motivation, inspiration, whatever you want to call it, that I had been sharing and like spewing my word vomit in different platforms, but not on a podcast, because I just never thought of the concept, honestly. I didn't know anybody besides one person in my life who had a podcast. So it was one of those things that like, oh, I listened to Rachel Hollis, I listened to Mel Robbins, I listened to Jay Shetty, but outside of my one friend, Sean, like it wasn't something that people I knew did. So it was not something that was even in my forefront per se. But now I really respected and admired this guy. One of my friends, Shannon, and I joke about how like she's kind of glad that's what he said to me because I would have done anything. He could have said, you should move to wherever. I would have tried to find a way to move because that same night, I stayed up till it was literally, I remember I saw 2:22 in the morning that night. And I was like, I need to go to bed. I am sitting in a wagon in Utah researching how to start a podcast. And it's almost 2:30 in the morning. But that night, I thought about all the people I'd be interested in having and interviewing on the podcast. People that I knew in my life personally that I respected their mindset. I respected their outlook on life. I respected something about them. Either people I had met personally, some people I had interacted with only virtually, but people I knew in my life. Because honestly, at the time, I didn't even know, like, where do you get guests for a podcast? Like, now I know there's freaking thousands of ways. But when I first even thought of the idea, I'm like, where do they come from? I don't know. But also, I had the mindset of just because I know you, just because you're my friend, doesn't mean you're going to be on Manders Mindset. Like, not just anybody's coming on Manders Mindset. So, like, I literally, pen and paper was sitting writing down, and I wrote down a list of 18 people that I thought I respected their mindset and wanted to have on the podcast. And it's kind of ironic. Some of these 18 people over the past little over a year, my mindset or theirs have changed. And I'm like, you know what? You are not coming on Manders Mindset. I haven't said that necessarily. But it's like, I'm not bringing just anybody on the show. I'm not.
And I agree.
So, I had that mindset and that framework, that perspective, even if you don't want to use the word mindset. Even before I had an official name, I knew I wanted it to be something along the lines of relating it to your perspective, relating it to how you think internally. And because I have shifted a lot of different things and how I look at the world internally, honestly. And Manders is something that a lot of my friends over the years have called me. And side note, like, my name's Amanda, but I've always hated being called Amanda. Even growing up, I was bullied for my name. Kids at my school were so weird. Like, how do you bully somebody for what their name is? Anyways, welcome to my life at 12. But it was one of those. That's even why Amanda's really caught on. When I was in college, I had close guy friends that just told me that was too long of a nickname, so they called me Ders, D-E-R-S. Basically, everybody's called me Manders because of that. So then I was like, I like the sound of play on, almost. Manders Mindset. Initially, I had thought of Manders Mindset Makeover, but then I was like, that's long. What?
I mean, that's really long. I mean, that was really long. Like, I mean, that could be like a special limited edition.
Manders Mindset Makeover.
Yeah, that could be a limited series inside your podcast.
But yeah, so I had thought about that, but then I talked with my friend Sean about it. He helped me with all of it step by step, literally. I didn't understand how to get it published, and he sat down with me, helped me figure it out, helped me create the cover out, and I launched the podcast 1 month post getting certified in breathwork. I certified in breathwork in June of 2023. It was suggested to me, you should start a podcast. I figured all the shenanigans out, launched the first episode on July of 2023.
All right, now, being a podcaster, I got to ask you this. We need to know about the technical prowess, how your show is set up. What was the early equipment like for your podcast? Because you can see now you got all kinds of bells and whistles. Your microphone is doing some extra stuff. Mine doesn't have any color to it. Yours got coloration. You got a stand and everything. I told you a weird story about me privately when we were talking in our pre-call. I used to take an iPhone with with a mic coming out of it in a trash bag or a bag. I would hold it up in the air like this, and you just yell into it. I'd be like, West Virginia Uncommonplace, snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah. But please tell us about your setup, because I want to know what that's like. And people, I really did. I held it up for a long time, 30-minute shows. I used to do an hour-long show, and my mother would just be like, why would you even do that, JR? So we all have life lessons inside our equipment. So tell us what the first equipment was like. And look, this is what I want you to do. When you tell us about the microphone, because everybody has a thing about, oh, I had this mic or that mic. You may have had a mic that I may have been interested in and may still want to just put on my shelf. Could you tell us about the setup?
So my very first episode, I recorded after Sean showed me the step-by-step. Then I recorded my first episode. It was a solo episode introducing what I planned with Manders Mindset. Now, for that episode, I used my MacBook at the time and a Yeti microphone.
A Yeti?
Yes.
What color was your Yeti?
It was blue.
So you had the original Yeti.
Sure,
the one if you hold it up the wrong way. I mean, that's a heavy microphone. If you're not careful, it could break your teeth or break your face if it swings down the wrong way, right? It's pretty heavy.
I mean, I guess.
It's heavier than the mic you're using now, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's a weapon.
I didn't try to use it as a weapon.
But I mean, if it fell on your foot, it could break your foot.
I guess it could.
Yeah. Now, go into more detail. Production on the show, because podcasters need this help sometimes. Because brand new podcaster, I'm one to always help everybody all around, and you do the same. You record these episodes, right? And you're going about, you become certified in breathwork. So you've got two things to juggle at one time, right? So how did you juggle doing breathwork and doing podcasting at the same time? I want to know about that, because see, I never had that. I'm just a podcaster. I talk about society culture, so all I do is go outside, and if the weather looks right, I'm talking about rain. If it's snowing, I'm talking about snow. If I'm in Tahiti or in my favorite place on earth, Toledo, Ohio, I'm talking about Toledo, Ohio. So tell me, how did you balance both of these?
So, like early on or now?
Yes. Oh, early on. We'll go to the future later.
I just slowly got into
it?
The balance of it.
The balance? All right, so let me ask you a question real quick. And sorry to interject, but this is something I need to know. Because me, for instance, everybody knows that I was a Spotify for Podcasters guy. I was one of those guys that would like go to Spotify and do your thing. Who was your podcasting host? And it leads into another question.
Buzzsprout.
Whoa, Buzzsprout? All the way down there in Florida?
Yeah.
Right. How do you upload an episode to that? I don't know how to do that. Can you explain to me how you upload an episode to Buzzsprout?
So you got to sign up for Buzzsprout. You make an account, choose however many hours you want to be able to have your total number of hours of episodes that you can upload. Then you fill out all the information from podcast title, description, your name. It gives you what's called an RSS feed, which is actually an interesting story. When I first published Manders Mindset, I got what's called an RSS feed because every podcast gets one. And now I didn't even know what this meant. It's some number that is associated with your podcast. Well, now I'm an iPhone user, pretty big on Apple products, and most of my friends and the people in my life are Apple users as well. Now, when I first released Manders Mindset, I didn't know how this happened or what happened, but it was then available right away on Spotify, but it wasn't on Apple. I looked in the back end on Buzzsprout, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It tells me there's a check mark. It says it's like either active or it says something, like basically that it's all set. And I was like, this is weird. So I emailed Buzzsprout, and like they did like their research on the back end, and we're like, you have 2 RSS feeds, and Apple thinks this is like a fraud. Apple is like stricter than Spotify is. So like Spotify just published your Manders Mindset. Apple is thinking there's 2 people trying to publish a podcast named Manders Mindset, so they're not letting either of these RSS feeds publish. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So I had to go in, find the second RSS feed, delete it. But Buzzsprout is amazing, by the way. 10 out of 10 would recommend if you're looking to host a podcast or looking to switch your platform. No, I'm not sponsored, but
good shout out. That's one of the shameless plugs like we do on my show. Now, Buzzsprout is an amazing company. And you and Buzzsprout, you're doing your show and you're learning about podcasting. Everybody learns about podcasting in different places. I'm going to give an example with me. Me and my crew, I've been podcasting since 2017. So I'm with that old school group that no one talks about. But then I went to the pandemic group. So all the podcasters used to hang out on Instagram because who was working? Who cared? So we all used to hang out there and make podcasts, whatever. In your instance, you go around, you go into different little seminars and different things, find out more and more about podcasting. And along this journey, there is this lady. And this lady, she's in podcasting and she's very vibrant. And she has a name. Her name is real catchy. It's Paula. Now, her last name Everyone is up in arms on how to pronounce her last name. Go ahead and give us your take on her last name.
Seema?
Seema. See, the way I looked at it, I do it completely different because, I'm Southern, but I'm from the North, South, and the South.
How do you pronounce it?
For some reason, I put it as Saman. I see it as Saman. That's how I see it. I know, right. That's why I just say everybody has their own take on it. So anyway, you interact with Paula in some group, correct?
Yes. And you mentioned that everybody had free time during the pandemic. Not everybody did. Some of us worked during the pandemic, just so you know.
I mean, I work too, but, that's a story for another day. You need to do a limited series on that. So you meet Paula. And explain to me what you and Paula interacted and how your relationship started.
So I met Paula virtually. Shout out Talk Shit with P. If you never heard, shameless plug, go listen. Talk Shit with P. She's one of my favorite people. We actually just met this year virtually before we went to PodFest in January. And I loved her energy. It was radiating. We connected right away. And we've been inseparable ever since.
Okay, so she's actually your first encounter in podcasting in a meeting setting like that, right?
No.
Or is she at least the noteworthy one? Let's go with the noteworthy one. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Or so we'll say noteworthy. Paula, don't hit me. Please don't hit me. Now, you mentioned something that I was going to mention, but you mentioned it before me. This thing called PodFest. What is PodFest? Hold on. I want to know what PodFest was to Amanda before she knew what it was. What was PodFest in the beginning of your life in podcasting?
It was a podcasting conference that I had not heard about.
Are you sure you want to go with that story, or do you want to recant that and tell me what was PodFest to you in the very beginning?
So I had never heard of course you asked me this. I had never heard of PodFest. I hosted on Buzzsprout, and now I was one of those that I don't know why I thought I would know everything about podcasting, being someone that did not even have friends previously really in the podcasting community, but I thought I knew it all. Anyways, I got an email from Buzzsprout, and they're like, PodFest is coming. And I'm like, this is a fake event. Why did I think Buzzsprout was emailing me about a fake event? Out of all people to send me an email about something fake, it was my actual hosting platform. It's not like it's even somewhere I don't host. It was my platform. Anyways, they're like, it's coming. I'm like, this is fake. I literally deleted the email. Fast forward, I don't remember, maybe about a week or so, I get an email and the subject line is, we want to send you to PodFest. And I was like, this is fake. And now it was like a scholarship or a giveaway that you could enter to win a ticket. Now, I purposefully entered this thinking, this isn't real. I'm going to prove that this is like a fraudulent thing by entering and not winning. Okay, I don't know. Anyways, to the point where I so don't think this is even an actual thing, I didn't tell anyone about it. I didn't tell anybody I applied for this scholarship. Normally, I would have told, I've got a few close friends that I tell even some of the wild, interesting things I do. I tell these certain friends of mine. Brandon's one of them. But I didn't tell anybody this because I'm like, this isn't even a thing. So it escapes even my mind, my thought process. I forget that I even applied for this. Fast forward, a little bit of time passes. It's probably about 3 weeks later. I get an email that's in the subject line is, you're going to PodFest. And I remember reading it and I said, oh, shit. Okay. Now, and my first thought is, okay, it's late December at this point. I've got about 3 weeks until this event. I'm unemployed at the time. So I don't have an income. I also checked when I filled out this scholarship thing that I could definitely attend this event in person in Florida. So now I call my mom and I'm like, hey, I've got a situation. And now it's funny because I get myself into different things. And she's usually my go-to call, always has been. She's like, what did you do now? And I'm like, listen, I didn't do anything that bad. This is one of the lesser things you got to worry about. She's like, what is it? So I tell her and she was like, that's it? She's like, so you just got to go. And I was like, Mom, what do you mean I just got to go? I'm not working. I'm this, I'm that. And she's like, well, I guess a plane ticket is your Christmas present from me, because you can't tell somebody that you can go to an event and then not go to the event if they give you a ticket. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, I guess I'm going to this fucking event.
So you're going to this event now. In traveling to events, and we both know that, you get on a plane as quick as I do, and you travel everywhere because you can be anywhere like me. I mean, they call me Visa, they call you MasterCard. You're some places, but I'm everywhere. But anyway, let me ask you something. We're going to do some podcast stuff real quick. We'll podcast roulette real fast. So we'll keep spinning it until one of us gets shot. There's an app called the Hoova app. It's the most amazing thing that happens to people. This app is it's like Tinder. It's like a dating service to help you network. What happened to you with the Hoova app?
What happened to me with it? What do you mean?
Like, what happened to you with the Hoova app? You had an experience because there was somebody that you wanted to meet in podcasting at PodFest. What happened with the Hoova app to help you get to where you wanted to go?
So, backtracking a little bit, early on at PodFest, I met somebody who became really influential in my life, and he asked me a question that nobody else that I spoke to at PodFest asked me, and honestly, it was one of my favorite questions ever, because it really just made me realize that he really cared about why I was there and what I was looking to achieve. He asked me if I could accomplish any one thing at my first PodFest, what would it be? And I told him, so now in some virtual podcasting event, I don't even know what it was at this point, but some virtual podcasting thing that I attended with, I think Jemmy was there, Lee was there, different people were there hosting it, and Gordon Firemark did a presentation there. Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer. And so I was a big fan. Even from his title, I will openly admit I had a huge fangirl crush. I was like, oh my God, the podcast lawyer. I love this. I love this man. And then I heard him speak, and he was so kind and friendly and approachable. And I was like, then he ended it with, oh, well, if you're heading to PodFest, it was coming up. I'll see you there. And I was like, oh my God, to the point where I was extra, and sometimes I get a little crazy and I do shit. And I sent him this long ass voice message on Facebook before even meeting Gordon in public. He didn't respond. But anyway, fast forward, I'm at PodFest. And so this guy says to me, if you could accomplish one thing. And I said, you're going to think I'm crazy if I tell you the one thing. And he's like, no, I've heard crazier things. Just tell me. And honestly, he really seemed like a genuine person to me. So I was like, I don't know if you know this guy, but there's a guy called the podcast lawyer. And I've been a paralegal for years, and I have to meet him. I love him, and I haven't even spoken to him. And then this guy that I was talking to, I'm thinking, this guy's going to think this bitch is fucking nuts. And without even batting an eye, he says to me, hey, there's this thing called the Hoova app. And, you can schedule and set up a meeting with somebody. You don't even have to speak to them. And he shows me. And you can request a time and request how long it's for, where you want to meet, all these specific things. And I was like, oh, my God. And I was like, he didn't respond to my Facebook message. He's like, so take matters into your own hands. You want to meet with him? Set up a meeting. And the time I had requested didn't work for Gordon. So, he sent back a different time. I confirmed it, but then I had a one-on-one hour-long lunch with Gordon. Gordon set it up for 30 minutes, but we were there even longer, and it was a blast. Yeah. And I'm over my crush now. Now Gordon and I are friends.
So what I wanted to add in, that's where the Hoova app came in for you. So anybody coming to PodFest, make sure you use the Hoova app, because you see, you got to do something amazing. So now you're at PodFest and you're meeting all kinds of people. I don't know exactly how Stacy and I encountered you, but we encountered you somehow there. We got to talking with you. You went to lunch with us. And
we interacted virtually at some point, because we were interacting at some point virtually before we met in person. Because at one point you were like, I'm recording with people. And I was like, I want to be one of the people.
We were recording all kinds of random stuff. And there's pictures on Instagram if you want to check that stuff out. But anyway, so you're with us, right? And I'm giving this little story inside here. And you go to our restaurant, Chili's. We love Chili's. So we go eat Chili's. You talk to me and Stacy, and then some incident happens with a vehicle that I will not mention because I don't want Stacy to body slam me or anything like that. But we had a little occurrence while we were going around, and then you're at Podfest, so you're moving around, you're moving and grooving with people. Eventually, Paula comes around, and everybody sees Paula is the mayor, the ambassador. She is basically the most energetic person at Podfest. Outside of her, you meet these amazing people. You meet a nice lady named Wendy Brandt. She's very stoic in a certain way. And you have a story that you have to tell me because you got to Podfest before me. Let's go back a little bit. I'm sorry that we're doing that. I hate to. But you got to Podfest before me. And what did you do when you got to Podfest, when you initially got there after the car ride and everything, the Uber, because you didn't rent a car, you were smart. You go there, and what are you doing during that time?
So something I try to do for a lot of places I go, if I am able to go a few days early to settle in, get myself in the mindset, in the zen of what's going to be happening, I do. And I had found out volunteering was an option for Podfest. And now I had it in my head, and I really don't know why, but I had it in my head, oh, it's my first event for this one. I can't volunteer during the actual event because if I volunteer during the actual event, I'm going to miss something. So I can volunteer for this setup. When I was in college, I at one point worked doing something called concierge for a few months on campus. I was like, I'll do the setup for it. So I did that. And I met a lot of different people pretty early on, from Wendy, from Jen Hody to Glenn the Geek. I got to learn. He calls himself that. I'm not calling him a geek. You made a face at me, so I'm just clarifying. I'm not just calling this man a geek for y'all hearing me. But I met all these really nice people that told me all about the community, told me all about Podfest. And, something I really loved about Podfest, and this is just a random little tangent, but I am someone who gets lost everywhere. It doesn't matter if I'm driving, if I'm walking, I get lost. I have the worst sense of direction in the world. Geography is not my friend, but one of the things that I loved so much about Podfest was even before anything was fully there, I had to go for whatever time the setup was. And I remember I was messaging Jen Hody, all kind of nervous. I don't know if she could tell I was nervous, but asking her where I'm supposed to meet them because we are setting up. So there's not going to be any signs. I'm not going to know where to go. And that wasn't the case at all. I literally was able to find my way, even though the signs were not set up where we actually ended up putting them. There were still different things that said Podfest. There were people with shows, even though it was the day before the actual event started. And I was like, I love this. One random little stressor that I've had in so many random areas of my life isn't here. Okay, I found my place in a random little way.
And Podfest is an amazing experience. Everybody's taking pictures, and I talk about this all the time, that I have this weird leaning problem for myself. And we took a few pictures, and I was kind of leaning this way. It looked like a dolphin trying to jump out of the water, and I can't get all the way out the water. Now, you go to different events, you meet so many different people, and you get bonds with people from this. So you meet this guy, and I look at him, and I'm looking at this guy. I seen him before, you probably seen him. He's got this dark hair, and I'm like, man, this dude looks like he could be a Calvin Klein model. He looks like he's on the cover of Podcast GQ. And this guy, there's a lot of things about him, but no addition to him, just a lot of minus. And this man, it's just something about him. He was catchy, he was a pretty man. And I say that in a clever and a nice way, no intent.
He's adorable.
Right. This great man. And he has the greatest generic name on earth, Brad. You meet the illustrious Brad Minus, no addition or multiplication or division. And
he's been the best addition.
Right. The best addition in your camp. And here's the thing. This man, you and him align because when you look on paper, if y'all were going to do a fight or something or just anything,
I would never fight him.
Well, no, I'm just saying if it was like we were doing this, it's called the tell of the tape. Endurance coach, breathwork coach, health fanatics. They could, as fast as you guys walk is how fast that I run. And, both of y'all beside each other, you see two people that just look like they know what they're doing. Now, you and Brad intertwine at Podfest. And when I see both of y'all, and before I interview Brad, y'all are walking somewhere down the hallway before you go into the expo hallway, and Brad is right beside you. He is there being very cordial. And what I would say about this is this, and I know I'm taking over the show a little bit, is when you're with Brad, right? Brad has this aura about him. It's just like, Brad, he could just tell me that if I put my finger in a socket, I will become Energy Man, and I'm going to believe it. If he has something like a technical prowess, I had my Zoom recorders and stuff like that, and he told me a certain way to get the sound proper. He told me I needed to put one of these little furry things on here. I forgot the name of it because I like to make love to the microphone. He said, stop doing that, JR. Move away from it. He even gave me the little thing that I just tell everybody. Finger to a mic, do that to the side. Keep away from the mic. So Brad's influential in that little bit of a time, but how far do you and Brad go after that? How far does your podcast friendship and then real life friendship go from there?
So he's actually the person I was referring to that helped me with the Hoover app and was like, you don't even have to speak to Gordon. You can just set up a time and have lunch with him. And I did. But yeah, he's been such a huge influential person in my podcasting journey and in my life as a whole, honestly. I kind of look at Brad the way some people look at God, not even going to lie. Anytime I have an issue with anything whatsoever, I ask him how to solve it, what his thoughts are. There's a funny, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of what it was, but my mom and I actually got ourselves into a little bit of what could have been a legal situation that could have been legal trouble for us. And we didn't know what to do with this. Now, she was driving her car. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and I'm like, what the fuck are we supposed to do? And I was like, can I call Pa? Like my grandfather, her father. And she's like, no, this is going to stress him out, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to call Brad. And she's like, well, I guess he's the only person you can call. And he told me step by step. He's like, you got to go to the police. This is what you have to say. Don't touch this. And I followed what he said step by step.
And you're legally safe now. You're legally safe now.
But literally, he's my favorite person in the whole fucking world. Anything I've needed, anything I've had a question about, anything whatsoever, he's the person I text. Like, I have an issue. I'm even struggling to shift my own mindset. Brad's the person I reach out to.
Okay, now, Brad is strong to you. If you had to think of a comic book character for Brad, who would he be?
I don't even know comic book characters.
I would say he's kind of like a dashing Captain America, Spider-Man type.
I know Spider-Man. I've heard of Captain America.
Okay, so he can be your Captain America then. We'll go with that because he looks like he would carry a big shield and just knock everything away. Now, he
can solve anything.
Right, and Captain America solves everything.
I believe that.
Well, let me give you this. Captain America is the leader of the Avengers, so let's just leave it at that. So he is Captain America. All right. And then we'll say you're Scarlet Witch, or you could either be
Black Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch is one of the women that are part of the Avengers. She has some little red powers, and she just throws them in the air.
Is she the woman with red hair?
Yeah.
You know, I watched part of Iron Man 2 when I was in middle school, and I don't remember anything about it, but I loved that woman's hair, and I dyed my hair red because of her when I was in 8th grade. Random fun fact for you.
All right, and then, you know, if you want to go further one, since you're just making an Avenger list, I would say Paula, where she's so hype, she could be, let's see, what character could she be that would be hype like that? I guess she could kind of...
Why are you naming Avengers?
Oh, I'm just going on with something real fast. I feel like she could be Incredible Hulk because she's, even though she's small, she would be big and she could just smash things and just take care of things for you if you had your own set of Avengers. Now, who else do you have in your camp? You got Gordon. Gordon would be Iron Man because Iron Man has a certain pizzazz about him. He's got a certain class to him. He's a dignitary, but he puts on that Iron Man suit and he can do anything. And Gordon can do anything when he's the podcast lawyer, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we could say that you almost have a set of Avengers, I guess, podcast Avengers, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And maybe you could take them up against mine. Mine would be me, obviously Stacy, because Stacy's, tough. Alex Sanfilippo, because he gives great advice.
Why did you get Alex Sanfilippo? Why is he not on my Avenger team? Who the hell says he's on your team?
I've known him.
I was just talking to him the other day. Why is he on your team? He might come to my team.
I don't know.
You don't know. I'll ask him.
All right, well,
I know how to shift mindsets and get people
You know how to,
to follow
you know
what
how
I'm
to shift
doing.
listen, you know how to shift mindsets, and I'm from an uncommon place. So how are you going to get to the uncommon place? My point. Now,
My
have,
point, I'm going to shift his mindset and he's going to help me. Okay.
all right,
Continue.
that may be your mutant power, but either way, and I have a bunch. So you've got a stacked list of Avengers. Do you think your Avengers could beat my Avengers?
Yes, absolutely. Brad could
How
take
bad do
anybody in the world. Even if it was just Brad, he could take anybody in the world. I have faith in him for everything.
So that's a
Yes.
fun fact there for
There's
everybody.
nothing that I don't think he could do.
Now,
Ironically enough, the only disagreements we've ever had is the handful of times he's not been able to do something.
Okay. But then you work through it and y'all are good to go. So you've got your set of Avengers and I've got my set. And Paula, don't hurt me. I'm going to say that one more time.
Paula and Brad together, they would kill for me. I'm good. Sorry, but you got your new thing coming. I'm good. I'm not worried.
Okay, so you got a group. So that's Amanda's dive into Marvel and into Avengers. I want you all to keep that. She did her origin story about her, how she came about with podcasting, and then she went to podcast, and then she got her own set of Avengers. So I like that. Now, you went to another conference, and I like this conference too. I did not actually have the opportunity to see you there because I have other obligations because we know I'm all over the continent of the United States with whatever I do in life. So you're at Podcast Movement. Podcast Movement is in Washington, D.C. How did you get to Podcast Movement? Did you fly?
I drove.
And typical person, because you know I travel your area to my area to everybody's area, that would probably be, I don't know, for someone like me, probably a 5.5 hour trip from New England to DC. Did it take you that long?
It took me 11 hours.
Whoa. Did you come visit me in West Virginia? Stacy and I at that time, did you come visit us in West Virginia by accident?
No.
Oh, wow. 11 hours. You were tired after that, weren't you?
Very. It was a full day trip.
Okay, wow, 11 hours. Man, I'm sorry, but that's a little hard on my chest, being a navigator. Now, anyway, you get there, and this Avenger that's with you is coming to this event, and it's Paula. You get there, and you and Paula get together. Tell me about the experience of Paula at Podcast Movement with you.
I ended up picking her up, not the first night I was there, but the next day from the airport. I picked her up from the airport. We went back to the hotel and we spent the week together. She volunteered and worked there while we were there. It was a blast. And her and I were together. We were together 24/7 there. Like when we went to Podfest, I spent some time with her, but I wasn't with her the whole time. Now, when we were at Podcast Movement, we were together almost the whole time. There were a few points. There was like 2 or 3 different times that I remember that I wasn't with her. And ironically enough, stuff happened to both of us each of the times we weren't together. Like interesting things that were like, what the fuck? She fell off a chair and got pretty hurt one of the times that I wasn't with her. And I heard about it. I heard about it from other people. I started getting messages. Is P okay? And I'm like, what do you mean is P okay? I've been with her for 4 days, but right now I'm not. Why are you asking me if P's okay? And that's how I found out that my best friend fell off the back of a chair, which was interesting also. But it was a great week. We were together from, like, I shared a hotel room with her. So we were together from sun up to sundown. She was working, but even though she was like working and manning like a booth area, I'd walk by, go to where she was. I spent some time with this other woman named Sarah St. John, who I met at Podfest as well.
Amazing lady.
Yeah, super nice woman. Love her. But yeah, it was a blast. And it was really nice because it was like the first opportunity that P and I got like a lot of one-on-one time together and a lot of good one-on-one time together. Now her and I had a little trip to Miami at one point, but that didn't go exactly as planned. So while we were together, it wasn't as fun or memorable, I'll say, of a trip as Podcast Movement was.
Okay, and I'm glad y'all got to go. Don't believe the hype that you can't go to events. There are means and ways to get to events if you try hard. We all know ways to get there. So if you're in the podcasting community or becoming part of the podcasting community, reach out to Amanda Russo because she has lots of resources and she knows how to get to these events, correct?
Yeah, that's true. I won a scholarship to both Podfest and Podcast Movement. So like paid to get myself there, but the ticket itself, I didn't pay for either.
Right. And all it takes is a simple Google form on certain things. Moving forward, 100 episodes. We're deep into this. You have structured your show from one way that you started out to the way you're doing it now. I listen to your show on 2 different platforms. Apple, obviously, because I'm the Apple guru. And I listen to it on Good Pods because I like to share because I handle listener migration. That's what I do in life. And your artwork. How did you change your artwork? Like for your guests, like your artwork, nothing disrespectful, but take this as a great critique. You had a good thing going, but then all of a sudden your artwork for your guests goes from 50 to 3,000.
When you say I had a good thing going, do you mean just when it was just me and using the same cover out?
Right. I mean, you're novice, you were new, but then all of a sudden, just like one day, just everything changes. It's like you went out here and like you hooked something into your shoulder, and now you're just doing all these new things with that artwork. How did that come about?
Brad helped me.
What?
Yeah. Brad could help me with everything. And
right. So let's do something real quick. Let's pay homage to Brad Minus real quick. Brad Minus is what we call a podcast house is a thing or a person or an entity that can do anything and everything inside podcasting.
He can do anything and everything inside of life. I believe that. I wholeheartedly
gotta put my hands up for that one.
I really believe there's nothing that Brad can't solve.
Okay, so now, Brad.
Hence why when I was literally almost in a legal situation, the only person I called was Brad. It ended up not being a huge thing, but I knew Brad would know what to do. And even my mom was like, you're right. He does basically know everything. And I'm like, I know.
So let's give a great shout out to Brad. We'll pay homage to him. You're going to have to make a theme song for Brad. Just to pop out to give and make him a t-shirt. He needs a shirt that says Brad and just put a minus on it. You know, different colors, 80s type colors, if you don't know what Miami Vice is, go to Miami Vice and make a shirt just like that. Brad minus.
Miami Vice, okay.
Yeah. Look at the colors of Miami Vice and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Good.
All right. And you do something that I don't do, that I appreciate that you do in podcasting. You impact people. You inspire people. All I do when I do a show is I put out some social content, this and that. People listen to it, go about their business. Some of them might impact them like 20 years from now, but yours happens right then and there. You don't look for the residual today. You don't look for the gratification or this and that. And today you do it solely so that the audience has the true you and the true definitive portion of what you do with your breath work and what you do inside Manders Mindset. So I want to tell you thank you for that. And I want to let you know that people appreciate that because it takes a lot of selflessness to do that. Won't lie. But I want to thank you for that. All right. Now, I want to do one thing that we bring over from West Virginia Uncommonplace, if you don't mind. Do you mind?
No.
All right, I have this thing called the 2020 questions. I pay homage to a news magazine called 2020 that was on TV. It had Barbara Walters on there, had John Stossel, he was for Comic Relief, and it had Diane Sawyer on it, the best interviewer in the world. So, Amanda, are you ready for your 2020 questions?
I'm ready as I'm going to be.
All right. You produce a show, you take care of the world. How do you fill your glass up with water in the proverbial sense after you've taken care of the world, done everything for everybody when it's the time that we think you're going to sleep? Because you don't sleep, you stay up 28 hours. When it's time for you to unwind and to fill that glass up, how do you fill your glass back up?
Breathwork is a big thing that I do. I do consistent breathwork. I'm very into movement. Even walking is something I do a lot of. I think it really helps if I'm upset over something, if I'm confused about something, just getting out of my body. Any type of movement. In Bali and then post Bali was like jumping around, shaking, moving the body, and just letting it all physically out. Getting all the feelings, sensations out of the body by moving it, clearing the energy field. And I think it's different for every single person, what works for that, but I'm a big believer in movement and in breathwork or some type of breathing technique, a lot of people talk about meditation, certain types of meditation. Like I do different types of guided meditations. I do 4-7-8 breathing techniques that really help me. It's also different depending on the time, like in listening to what it is my body needs in that moment and like coming to that awareness. Movement's something I love so much. Like I've got a mini trampoline in my living room that I jump on randomly whenever I'm just feeling like jumping around. You're looking at me like I'm nuts, but yeah.
No, it's that you're nuts. I'm giving you a look because I'm like, wow, you got a trampoline. I need to get Stacy one. But anyway, so you mentioned something. There was an episode that goes back in my head, and I can't remember the number, but you went to Bali. And then going to Bali, there's a story behind it. So everyone tune into that episode. Do you remember that episode?
Episode 60. I was interviewed about my experience in Bali.
All right, so you went to Bali. Now, go listen to that episode so you can get all the insight on this. But this is an inside thing between me and you. This is the personal question between us, right? You do that episode. It gets out there. It carries you across the world to people. It lets people know about breath work, right? And tells about an experience that you had with a person and how you got to go to the circumstances and events that bring you there. So that's an amazing story. That's what, to me, that's one of your greatest crafted stories and life lessons. The whole thing around, which we won't do the life lesson, but we both know it. So here's the question about you in this episode. After you finish this episode, people listen to it. And I've talked to you about it numerous times because you and I are AV people. We work on these episodes and we work on different things to fix the microphones. And me and you talk here and there. Not all the time, but at least every quarter of the year we talk at least twice. So I know you in and out on certain things, and you can talk to me about anything. So Bali, breathwork, and Amanda Russo. Give me a short synopsis on why, to this day, that episode always sticks out in my head. Tell me what I'm thinking and why that episode always sticks out to me.
Why it sticks out to you?
Would you like me to give you a hint? Because it's the first time in listening to anything that you've done that you tell about a genuine human experience with you. You always go on and let people know about things and different things, but that experience about how you actually got to go. The Amanda Russo greatest hits. We need the Amanda Russo greatest hits. What are the greatest hits inside your catalog?
Like of episodes?
Yes.
I'd say the Bali episode was one of them. I'd say episode 91 through I think it's 94. That was, I spoke with 3 different women. It was a forgiveness series. Those were some pretty powerful episodes. I'd say episode 98 with Gordon Firemouth. That was a really powerful episode.
Okay, now here's a funny question. This is one of the John Sasso questions because he's a karmic relief from 2020. If we were still producing DVDs and Blu-rays, which nobody uses those, everybody's voice on demand, or CDs, what format would you use for one of your episodes?
So what do you mean by what format?
Say, for instance, the episode with Gordon, would you put that on a DVD or Blu-ray and make a nice cover for it and release it? Or would you just want to put it on a CD and people hear the audio? What episode have you done that you would put on an old physical format and release it? Like, I'll tell you something I did, and this is gangster. I released an episode on Laserdisc. You don't even know what Laserdisc is. I did it as a joke to prove, and I'm the first podcaster to ever do that in the world. I released an episode I did called The Middle, which is considered my best work. I released it on Laserdisc, and only 4 people have it. I've even released an episode on record just to facilitate this idea of that if we were back in the olden times and I had one episode or one thing that was good, I put it in this physical format. Obviously, record sounds the best because it's the best sound you can get. And I released one episode that was great at that time. So what would be your episode? What would be your physical media? Would you do a VHS tape? Would you do a DVD? Would you do a CD? Would you do a Blu-ray? And what episode would it be? Think about it. If you could do that, which you can do it at any time, what episode could get burnt to a CD or DVD or a record or even a tape, which I don't know how you make a tape now, but whatever.
I would put the episode with Gordon on a DVD, or
Okay.
even episode 99 I did with one of my best friends, Brandon. I'd put that on a DVD because it was kind of funny. Even my facial reactions, him shaking his head at me, different visuals that you could see.
So listen, everybody, the challenge out there is for Amanda to release this on a DVD somewhere before February of 2025. Anyway, now on to the last question. This is the Barbara Walters question. This is the most personable question. This question right here will set the mood and tone all the way till episode 200. Are you ready?
No.
You're not ready. This is your show. You should be ready for this. All right. In life, you have done a lot of things. You have over 72 titles to your name. You have met millions of people and you traveled all over the world now. You can actually say you traveled all over the world. And the greatest distinction and the greatest thing that we can get in life is this piece of glass with some kind of crap on it. It's called a mirror. And when you get a mirror and you look at yourself, from time to time, you see different things. Well, in your life, you looked in the mirror in 2019. And from 2019, you had to go from that portion and you had to go into the future with that mirror. You went to the future. So the mirror in 2019, you put it down, you pick it up, and it's 2024. What happened in 2019 that makes 2024 different?
A lot happened in 2019.
Okay.
How deep do you want me to go?
Let's go down that rabbit hole.
Okay. Rewind 2019. I was living in Rhode Island on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex with my boyfriend at the time. And it was October 2019. I'll never forget. I was walking up the stairs to the 3rd floor and I had nothing in my hand and I was out of breath. And I was like, what the fuck? And now I, rewinding a little bit, had gone through my own fitness journey a little bit. Growing up, I was always overweight. Then in high school, I went to the doctors and I got on the scale and I was really close to 200 pounds. And I was like, nope, I don't care what I have to do. This is not happening. Fast forward, I was also a vegetarian at the time. And that sort of developed what I didn't realize or quote unquote classify as an eating disorder at the time. But I started restricting so much to the point where I was only eating fruits and vegetables, only green vegetables. So like if it was corn, I wouldn't touch it. If it was carrots, wouldn't touch it. It was mainly green beans, mainly honeydew melons. Sometimes I'd have some cantaloupe, but that was it. And on and off, I'd eat a meal with my family. So like I didn't look like I was basically having this eating disorder, honestly. That helped me lose a little bit of weight. Fast forward, 2015, I go to college, move to Rhode Island, went to Roger Williams. I got involved in this relationship and it changed a lot about me. I actually stopped being a vegetarian because of said relationship, and that's a whole other story I can delve down if you want me to. In college, I gained some of the weight back. I didn't get back to right under 200 pounds, but I had probably lost about 30 pounds from that eating disorder. I also started going to the gym, Planet Fitness membership. I was only doing cardio because I was nervous of the weight room, thought it would injure myself. So lose a little bit of weight with that, but going to college, I started eating meat. I'm in the dining hall. I gained a good amount of the weight back. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Now, October of 2019 rolls around. I have graduated college at this point. I'm living in Bristol, Rhode Island on the 3rd floor. And I'm like, what the fuck? I am out of breath. And I don't have one thing in my hand. I can visualize this in my mind. Like, I didn't even have my phone in my hand. And honestly, I walked inside and I literally just sat there for a second and I was like, what the actual fuck? Like, something's got to change because I just don't want to live like that. Like, outside of look, outside of feel, I was like, it's a basic, I'm struggling to walk up the stairs. And it's not like, again, my biggest example was you have nothing in your hands. If I did, like, there could even be some excuse, reason, whatever word you want to use, for me being out of breath. So I was like, something's got to give. Now, right around this time, I discovered a woman who's been pretty influential in my life. Her name's Rachel Hollis. Talked a little bit about her on the podcast. Not delving down that rabbit hole right now, but she mentions about doing something every single day, and that's moving your body for 30 minutes. And I thought to myself, there's no way or reason that I can't move my body for 30 minutes, even though I'm overweight. I don't have a lot of money right now because job situation was really funky then. But I was like, I can go for a 30-minute walk. I don't need anything to walk for 30 minutes. So I've tried to convince my boyfriend to do that with me, whatever. I start walking 30 minutes every single day. And I started noticing I was less out of breath. I didn't notice that I looked different. And it wasn't a huge difference in being less out of breath, but it was noticeable to the point where I'm like, wow, I'm not like, oh my God, trying to catch my breath just from walking. Okay, so I loved that. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Fast forward around that same time, October 2019, I got an email from Anytime Fitness saying something along the lines of, oh, we'd love to have you back. You can have like a free 2-week fob. Now, years ago, I had actually won a gym membership. I never used it. That's a whole other story of the toxic relationship that I was in. I don't know if you want me to delve down that, but I got this email and I thought to myself, 2 free weeks of a gym membership. You know what? I want to see more progress than what I'm seeing with these 30-minute walks. Let me get this 2-week membership and see. If I use it, I'll keep paying for it. If I don't, no harm, no foul. Then I will just get rid of the membership. So I go there, I set up an appointment, they show me around the gym, and now I see this group workout being done. And I was like, that is cool. And now I said to the owner at the time, I was like, I want to do that. What is that? I want to do that. And he's like, that's a group HIIT classes. That's something separate, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't care that it's separate. I want to do that. He's like, okay. So I signed up for that. I fell in love with it to the point where it didn't even seem like I was working out per se, which I was, obviously, but I was doing it for the community, for the enjoyment. I made friends and was spending time with people really nice. I had things in common with people who were just genuine good people. And I also had a pretty toxic living situation at the time. Now, I joined the gym in October. I was in a relationship when I joined said gym. My relationship fell apart that Thanksgiving day. So timing was pretty close together. Yeah, it was Thanksgiving. We ended up living together for about 9 months as broken up. But that fell apart around then. And even more so, it wasn't great in that month leading up to it. From Thanksgiving until the following August, we lived together and shared a pretty small apartment. And I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be there ever. It was a toxic living situation, which obviously it was, considering we worked together. We had broken up. We were living together. We broke up because he cheated on me. Like, nothing was good. His excuse was, I can't break up with him because we live together. He wasn't going to move. I was stubborn. I wasn't going to move. I was like, fuck it. You don't want to leave? I won't leave either. We can fucking do this. That's fine. And we did. For reference, in terms of how small, we shared a bedroom even after being broken up. The apartment was so small, we didn't even have a couch. So, like, we shared a bed even post breakup. I stuck 3 pillows in the middle of us and told him not to touch me. And we did that for 9 months.
What I'm saying is, I'm amazed. Okay.
Yeah. So that also aided in me working out more because I didn't want to be there. So if I could be at the gym, I was at the gym. So, for example, I was doing these HIIT classes. There were times I do 2, sometimes 3 classes in a day. Not even necessarily, it was insane. I was moving my body so much. So, like, I started shedding weight pretty quickly. But it wasn't even because I was, like, obsessed with the exercising. It was more an escape mechanism, which is that necessarily the best thing? Who knows? But my living situation wasn't great. And considering all the things I could have been fucking doing instead of being home, if I'm spending my time at the gym, I'd bring my food to the gym. I'd eat lunch at the gym. I was working at a group home at the time. It was to the point where, like, I'd do a morning workout. I'd eat some food. I'd do an afternoon workout. I'd head to work sometimes. So there were times I'd be at the gym sometimes from like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then I'd go to work.
So, I mean, that was a smart thing to do. So you weren't in a toxic situation all the time.
Yeah.
This is the 100th episode. We want the juice and the tea.
Do you have a question on that?
I know you're telling the story right now, so I'm listening. I'm all ears. This is intense. This is like something that could be on the Lifetime channel. You know, I could make a soap opera out of this.
Yeah, no, it was intense. That was a wild Thanksgiving morning. You know, my mom had said something to me, and I'm one of those people that I love quotes, and I really take different things, random things that people will say to me. It could be random, it could be motivational, but I will remember it for my fucking life. I'll take it to the gravestone. Like, be careful what you say to me. But my mom had made this comment to me once, and I posted this on my Instagram like 4 years ago, but she made this comment to me once. I'm pretty sure it was about this toxic relationship, because we were together for about 5 years total. We broke up at one point for about 2 months during it because he cheated on me even once we got back together. But she had said to me, you know, I mean, I'm trying to remember exactly how she worded it, but she said something along the lines of, you know, if something or someone in your life at some point no longer brings you any happiness or joy, it's time to let that go from your life. It could be a job. It could be a relationship, a friendship, a place you live, a location, a hobby, anything whatsoever. If you reach a point where you don't have one aspect of something that you enjoy, even the thing you dislike the most. And she mentioned that because, like, I've been someone who have a difficult time leaving things because I see the good in everything a little bit. I try to, at least. Or I fairy tale, like, well, this is not great, but it's good because of this. And, you know, she said to me, once you've got no joy or no happiness with it, you just got to let it go. And that was something that I had always really reflected back on. And I had a lot of my own toxic ways throughout this relationship. Now, that same Thanksgiving morning, things had felt off and weird between us. And now, how I found out different things at times throughout a relationship by looking at his cell phone. Should I have done that? No. Should I have felt like I needed to? We all have done our toxic shit. But anyways,
yes,
I toxically looked at this phone this fucking Thanksgiving morning, and I saw messages with him and the same woman that he had cheated on me with years prior. And I was just like, what the fuck? And, you know, I'll never forget, I talked to my mom about it before I confronted him. And she was like, do you really want to deal with this on Thanksgiving Day? And I was like, do I really want to deal with sitting next to my cheating boyfriend on Thanksgiving Day? Like, what do you want to deal with? It was one of those of like, what shitty situation do you want? And, you know, I didn't even tell her this at the time, but I really had that mindset of, I don't have any joy around this, you know, and it was Thanksgiving and thinking of all these different things you're thankful for. And I literally was sitting there and I was like, this sounds really fucking horrible. And I'm not sitting here trying to like paint this man as like this awful person, because honestly, I've got no bad feelings towards him. But I was like, you know, I am not thankful for any aspect of this relationship. And it was when I came to that awareness that I was like, if I'm not thankful for any aspect of this, also that mindset of what Sharon said to me fucking years ago, randomly, like, there's no happiness here. Like, what am I doing? And I was like, I can't do this. And I'll never forget, like, I started his fucking Thanksgiving morning with that. I was like, listen, I can't do this anymore. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm done. Like, I saw that your text, and so I was like, listen, it is what it is. He's like, you can't break up with me on Thanksgiving. And I'm like, listen, that's not a reason to stay with someone. And then he's like, we live together. Listen, I don't care. And he's like, we can't live together broken up. And I was like, so then you can go. I'm not forcing you to stay here. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, he's like, I'm not leaving. Where am I going to go? And I said, well, I'm not leaving either. And he's like, we can't live together, not together. And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you. You can go or you can stay and we can live together broken up. And yeah, and I was like, I'm not going to Thanksgiving lunch because we were supposed to go to lunch with his mom and his grandmother. And then he's like, I'm not going to go either. And I'm like, first of all, just because like we're breaking up doesn't mean you're going to do that to your fucking mother. So I took matters into my own hands. This was maybe my grandma coming out at me, but I called his mother and I was like, listen, and I wasn't rude. I didn't shit talk her son, but I was like, listen, I just wanted to let you know him and I broke up. Like, I'm not looking to talk crap about your son. I know sometimes he exaggerates things. He's telling me now he's not going to Thanksgiving lunch. I was like, listen, I'm not in the place mentally to sit next to him on Thanksgiving, but make sure he shows up to lunch because there was no reason he should not be there. Like, we didn't have a big blowout. I was like, he's talking to the same girl he cheated on me with, and I'm just over it. And she's like, Amanda, I'm so sorry. I was like, listen, I'm not looking for you to apologize, but here's the deal. I'm not going to be the reason he misses Thanksgiving lunch with his mother and his grandmother. Like, his father's passed away when he was young. I said, no. He was the type of person to, like, exaggerate shit, whether it was a positive thing or a negative thing. And he's like, this is the worst thing. I can't go. Yeah, buddy, shut the fuck up. You can go to Thanksgiving lunch.
Yes,
and you're going to go to Thanksgiving lunch. And it was funny because I'll never forget because he had texted her that he wasn't going. And I was sitting next to him and she called him. And I don't know what she said, but he was like, yeah, I'll be there. And he asked me, do I have clothes to wear? Yeah, you've got clothes in the bedroom that you can wear to Thanksgiving lunch. He's like, I'm going to go. And I was like, good. And I was like, it's funny looking back, it's 5 years later now, but I even said to him, in 5 years' time, I promise you will be glad that you went. I said, you can cuss me out all you want right now. Go for it. Go shit talk me to your mother. I would do this again in 5 years' time or 10 years, 20 years, when your grandmother's not alive, you'll be glad you went to Thanksgiving. Okay. So you can feel however you want to feel about me. If I could have Thanksgiving with my grandma right now, even if we didn't have this issue, I would be. So, and he was like, I guess that's true. Okay, you're right. Have a nice lunch. I fucking ironed your shirt. You're welcome. And I literally fucking said something like that. Like, I have a lot of sass, but I'm like, listen, I'm not, if I can affect how people look back on life, just because things didn't work out between us, I don't have bad blood towards him, you know, and his grandmother is still alive, but I'm still in contact with some of his family. And I know some of his family members have passed away. You know what? He will be glad whether he recognizes it ever or that ever comes to his awareness. I know for a fact there's a portion of him, whether he knows it or not, that he's glad that he was there. Because his grandma's not going to live forever. She was 70 something then. And not that age is a factor, but it is at times. And I'm like, buddy, you ain't going to use me as an excuse. Then I'm going to be the reason. And it was funny because that was one of the things that I didn't tell anybody I was going to do. I just left the apartment. I went to my car and I called this woman. And even my mom was like, Amanda, you can't call his mother. And I said, Mom, I'm not asking you. I am just letting you know what I did because I told her after the fact. Right. She's like, you can't do that. I said, well, you can ask who I did. I spoke to her for almost 20 minutes and I explained to her. I said, don't let him not show up to Thanksgiving. There's no reason. And he's giving me all these excuses. Nah, I ain't having it.
Now, I'm going to say this. Let's go back to your grandmother for 1 second, and then we're going to move along. I thank you for doing that. And now doing it, you won't reflect on it. Like you said, You won't reflect on it now, but later you're going to realize that was a hidden gem inside this episode. We learned about Amanda Badass. That was Amanda Badass. If anything else could have went on that day, it would have went on. So now, before we get to the very end of the show, I want to do something real quick. You have a lot going on now. You have turned over a new leaf. You got a new hat on. You got a new shirt on and everything. What's
I'm
new?
not sorry for anything. That's what my hat says. It's from Rachel Hollis. Not sorry.
Okay. Manders Mindset is one place, but you started doing something else. I sent an announcement across Facebook somewhere or something. It was somewhere. We're intertwined in all kinds of stuff, And so what is going on in the Manders Mindset breathwork ecosystem now? What can people look forward to now? What's this major announcement you're going to drop on us?
So if you follow me on social media, and if you don't, you should. Instagram's the Breathing Goddess, very active over there. But I announced it on Instagram and Facebook that have launched a new podcast called Breathwork Magic. Now, I wanted to have a space to simply share just about the breathwork, the benefits of breathwork, the magic of it, the transformations that can happen from breathwork. I've shared some stories about breathwork. I've spoken to some breathwork facilitators on Manders Mindset, and that's even opened my eyes to more of the things that can happen from and through breathwork, which is still mind-blowing to me. Like, one woman healed her 15-year eating disorder from breathwork, which I was like, okay, that's so fucking cool. But I wanted a place to simply share about the transformations and the magic of breathwork. And Manders Mindset isn't that. You might want to hear about stories that I've overcome and how I've shifted my mindset, or how people have shifted their mindset, different challenges they've overcome. But you might not want to hear just about breathwork. If there's a breathwork facilitator on Manders Mindset, okay. But you might not be coming for Manders Mindset. Like, I'm someone who is big on intention. What is your intention for doing XYZ? Like, in the moment. And it's funny, that same boyfriend of mine came back around years later, and he thanked me. He was like, I thought you were a bitch to me that day. And I was like, I know, I seemed like one. He's like, but I'm really glad you forced me to go. He's like, I kind of had a puss on my face, but I'm still glad I was there. And I was like, I'm sure you will. He's like, I don't know why I did what I did to you. And I was like, it's irrelevant. We were young, shit happens. But it's like, what's your intention with this? And like, my intention with Manders Mindset is not to only share about breathwork, but I wanted a place for people to hear about transformations and about the power and what can happen from it. So I wanted to create a platform simply for that. So that's what that is. Also, I didn't want breathwork to be something that people can't access. Sometimes it's done in person, sometimes it's done virtually. One-on-one sessions are more expensive, more of an investment, because we're putting more time into it. I curate a specific playlist. I send you a very detailed questionnaire about things you're going through, thoughts, emotions, feelings, behaviors, habits, all of the whatnot. But I wanted to make breathwork in general accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world, regardless of where you are located physically, regardless of economics, socially, status, any of the above. So I've also started launching Mindful Mindset Mondays, virtual breathwork with me, pay what you can, that you can do. All you need is internet connection anywhere in the world, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, I really wanted to be mindful of, I speak to a lot of people who are in different countries, internationally, Australia. So I'll send a replay as well if you register for the event, so that even if you can't join me live, which I really do recommend attending live if you're able to, but it still gives anybody the access who wants to experience what breathwork has to offer. There's no barrier, removing any type of barrier to entry.
Okay, and I like that. Everybody, you got that right there. That was a shameless plug that I like people to do on my show, and they're doing it here. Now, the hardest thing to do with a show is get a show wrapped up. Jay Shetty from the podcast On Purpose.
Oh boy.
is a way and a means to how your show ends, correct?
Yeah.
And the questions that get asked to you only get one answer. It's not a long, drawn out thing. It's very concise and to the point. And the first part that you handle is the many sides to us, correct?
Yeah.
And when you handle this side, this makes you, like the word I always use, personable. It makes you more personable, and it makes you a little livid too. Because people are going to get an adjective about you. They're going to take this adjective and they're going to keep it in their mind. That's going to stay with them forever, correct?
Yeah.
And then the final part of this is the final five, correct? And what happens inside the final five is we get an introspective, retrospective, whatever type of perspective we're going to get from you. And then it's over with. And then after this episode is done, that's episode 100, and you go on from here, and then you do episode 101, which is going to be the hardest thing for you to do. So, Manders, are you ready?
Yes.
The mini side sus starts right now.
Sure.
What is one word that someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you?
What was the word that you would use when you first met me? If you had to describe me in one word when we first met, what would it have been?
Talkative. Talkative. Now, the second question. What is one word that someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you?
Adventurous.
What is one word you'd use to describe yourself?
Intentional.
Okay. What is one word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you? Not like an internet troll or anything like that, but just like someone that just decided that, hey, Manders mindset is not the way to go.
Annoying.
What is one word that you're trying to embody right now?
That.
The final five. Get a little intense. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
Probably that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Because again, I'll never understand the reasoning or the need to be inconsiderate. Like, again, it comes back to we all have the judgments, but why say them to hurt somebody else's feelings, you know?
Okay. Grandma, we love you for that one. Grandma, we really love you for that one. What is the worst advice you've ever heard or received?
I don't know why this is the first thing that comes to my mind when you say this, but I've been very particular with the podcast, with Manders Mindset, with what I release, what I publish. You know, I mentioned like not just anybody's going to be a guest. And now I ran into technical difficulties at one point in time when I was using Riverside, which I would not recommend. This is not me bashing them, but that's a whole nother story. Anyways, I didn't like Riverside. They gave me a pretty big issue, and I was cut out of this recording, and I had the recording was messed up and I couldn't use it, but it was a guest I really wanted to speak to. And one of my podcasting friends had told me that I shouldn't ask this guest to re-record with me because that's unprofessional and whatever. And I was like, listen, I'm just going to be honest with them. That's another thing about me. And I say this more so to the people I'm close with, but you might not like what I have to say, but I'm never going to lie to you. I'm never going to be that person to just agree with you, to say what you want to hear. I will be honest, straight up. You might not like what I have to say. Yeah. So that was the worst advice because I was like, you know, why am I not going to, if there's something I want to record, and if there's a guest I want to speak to, and just because I've already recorded with them, yes, it was my issue. But why am I not just going to be real and be like, listen, here's the deal. Riverside cut me out for part of the whole recording. My video's gone. My audio's gone. They have no solution for me. Blame it on my Mac software. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So my friend was like, just edit it and include yourself and just have it missing what it has missing of the portion that. And I'm like, no, that's going to be choppy and weird. And like, one, this person has valuable information to share. Two, I have a certain standard for one, Manders Mindset, and two, for myself. So I'm like, and I'm also not going to settle for not having this recording that I fucking want. If I want something, I'm going to fucking do whatever it takes to get it. That was a long-winded answer of the worst advice.
Now, what is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Michael Kors poses. That's very specific, but I loved them. Like when I was in high school, I had so much pride in owning one. I deleted the photo years ago, but like I literally posted a photo of just a random ass Michael Kors bag that I bought when I was in high school on my Instagram. And it's like, for what? Who cares to see this? No one. Literally no one.
Now, if you could describe what you would want your legacy to be, if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
I would want my legacy to be to say, she made me feel seen, valued, heard. She was somebody that I knew I could talk to about any and everything, no matter what it was I was going through. And just that I was always a person that showed up for my people. I always showed up for them.
I like that. Now, if you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be?
This is the question I've never wanted to answer. It's really tough. Like the paralegal in me thinks so fucking deeply about this, if I'm being honest. But I don't know where this came. I guess my head just did an interesting tone. If you were listening to me, I just moved my head in a weird way. But I've never heard this phrase in my life, but it came to my mindset, I guess you can say. Anyways, that you have to journal your judgment, because you don't, again, it comes back to that mindset of not being an asshole. Even if you have a reason to judge somebody for whatever it is, like you see so many different posts on social media and about people judging this person for that, and whether they name the person directly or not, but it's just like, you don't have to say things like, again, that you don't have to, if you don't have anything nice to say, shut the fuck up. Like, so I have no idea how to enforce this, but I'd say that people have to journal their judgment before they speak it out loud, because you judging somebody, you don't know the level of impact it's going to have on their mental, emotional, physical state. Like, things that are said to us can weigh us down, and people don't often even think about that, so it's like, shut up. It's literally like, some of the biggest moments in my life that I've kind of seemed like a bitch to people is when, as I got older, I started speaking out about like not being an asshole. I remember I got in an argument. I was a cheerleader in high school, and I was the only fat cheerleader. Like I stood out, but you know what? Again, I didn't follow the rules. If I want to be a cheerleader, you can't tell me just because I'm not skinny that I can't be one. I'm going to be one. And it's side quick tangent, but there was one girl I was friends with, and I'll never forget. We were in art class, and she was making fun of some guy because of his pepperoni-like face, because he had a lot of zits. And I'll never forget, she was telling me that she's going to tell him that. And I remember getting in a fight with her, and I was like, why do you have to say that? Like, what is this benefiting you? How is this helping you? I was kind of sassy because I was like, are you going to feel better about your shitty life by telling him he's a pizza face? And she was like, why would you say something like that to me? And it's like, okay, maybe I said it the wrong fucking way, but journal about this. Like, you know what? You want to talk about this? Talk to me about this. Not that I really want to be this person, but I'm pretty often one of the people talk to about their fucking judgments, which is fine. Talk to somebody. Say it to somebody besides the actual person, which this is not me condoning shit talking, but it's like, don't hurt people for no fucking reason.
Agreed. Yeah. Why would you want to hurt someone? Now,
and I don't think it's necessarily always people's intentions. I think majority of people don't have the intention to hurt people, but we don't necessarily think about what we're saying. And it's like, write it down. Say it to your best friend. Like, ask yourself, if you have kids, or even if you don't have kids, would you say what you're saying or about to say to somebody, to a child?
No, not at all.
Maybe take a step back and don't say it.
Now, episode 100 has come to a close. And even though I was the host of the show, I can't be your outro. So I guess it's time to pass it back to you. You're the host now. Believe this. Look, the headphones get to come off halfway. Go ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and to interview me on my own show. This was fun. A little nerve-wracking, a little different, but I loved it. And thank you guys for tuning in to episode 100 and over a year of Manders Mindset. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the episode, leave me a rating, leave me a review. Even if it's not a positive review, I'd love to hear what you have to say, your thoughts, good, bad, anything in between. I'm not opposed to hearing any feedback, but as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of Manders Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you, I'm rooting for you, and you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.